Everybody 30 seconds to settle in and finish a conversation, and then this is the only time of the year where I start the meeting, I guess. Bear with me as we go this.
Recording in
Renee, we all
progress.
set?
Yes, we're recording and you are unmuted, so yep, you're all set.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. This is the meeting, the March 17th meeting of the Southwest Vermont Union Elementary School District. I'm Tim Payne, Superintendent. My one and only point of business on this list is to take nominations. No, I should back up. Should I do? I'll do nominations first and I'll let the chair then take over the agenda. The only thing I need to do is request nominations in order for the chair members present. Anybody nominating for chair?
I nominate Sandy.
I'll second. Any other names to be nominated for chair? Seeing none. There are no other nominations I can ask. Do you wish to elect by acclamation as a board? A simple yay or nay? Or would you want ballots passed around for the one candidate? Okay. So, nominating Sandy Foster, noted. Just want to put it in the notes, sorry, Glenn, Cindy. All those in favor, of Sandy Foster being chair of the SVUESD board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, any abstaining?
Abstain, just like this.
Understood. All right. So, thank you, everybody. Sandy, welcome, board chair. The agenda is yours.
Thank you. So I first believe I should thank Chris for his years of service and for the amount of time that you have dedicated to our board. It's very much appreciated, not only by me, but I'm certainly sure by the members of our community. It's a good time to change with a new superintendent. And so let's start this agenda with the first thing that's on it, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can, please stand. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like this time to make nominations for the vice chair. I feel very confident, and I personally would like to nominate Glenn as our vice chair. I'll second it. Are there other nominations for the vice chair? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, abstention, one out of politeness. Thank you, Glenn. And our clerk, we also need to nominate our clerk as well, so.
I'd like to nominate Jim. He did such a great job.
I would second that. Thanks.
First and a second. Any other nominations for our clerk? Hearing none, let's vote by saying aye if you're in agreement. Aye. Opposed? None? Abstain? One. Out of like this. And authorization for the chair and vice chair to approve off-cycle warrants. Those are the warrants that typically happen in July or a month that we don't meet as a board, or in some way that some unusual circumstance that would happen that we would need to approve. So I need authorization, a board approval for that.
I made that motion.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Chris. All those in favor of that, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Same. Good. Motion carries. I also, because this is authorization to execute contracts. Sorry, don't want to get out of that?
We need to do SVSU reps as well for reorg. Before
Thank
we start moving on the agenda, sorry.
Thank you, Brenda.
Yep.
We need SVSU reps as well. In the past, we had Jeff, myself, and Glenn. We had 3 reps. And if those 3 reps would continue or would like to continue or should do them all individually.
I'd like to make a motion that the 3 that were present last year continue.
And then
I second that.
are there other nominations to the SVSU board? Hearing none, then I would request that we vote to have the 3 reps.
Sandy, can we have some discussion on the motion?
Yes.
first? So here's just a question. Since we have to fill a vacancy to this board, do we want to wait? So we have to appoint someone to the vacancy by April 4th. Do we want to hold off on voting on SVSU reps until we have that person on board? Or do we feel confident that we should just move forward with that? And I don't know that I have an opinion, but I raise it as a question.
It's a great question. Do we have anyone in mind that is interested in the position? Has anyone approached you?
So, yep, so we, so agenda item 6 kind of talks about us figuring out the process, but if you'll note, there's a proposed executive session on the bottom. The way that appointments have been handled, and I think that the open meeting law talks about it, is that any decision we make has to be out in the public, but any discussion about the potential appointees should happen in executive session. So I put that out there. We do have 2 interested parties so far, and that's before this board has even formalized the process by which we might solicit for. So we do have people interested, and so far as I can tell, we have at least 2 very qualified people who are interested. So again, I raise it as a question. I don't know that I'm advocating for one position or another.
And what does the rest of the board believe as part of this discussion?
I mean, usually we've had, in the past, we held, but we do have the SCSU meeting that's restructured there. I mean, that's the hard part, which is.
Is there anybody who has any experience being a school board member? Because going to the SVSU your first year might not be.
I mean, I think that's
advantageous of.
not
I'm not
school board members.
sure.
No, for sure.
Position,
Yep. No, so not school board members, but members of other boards. Yeah, public and private boards. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we could move it till the end of the session to nominate the reps, when they can, so. But we'd had to.
But
When is the SVSU meeting?
next week.
Next Wednesday.
So I mean, if they're reorganizing at the SU level next Wednesday, then maybe we just go ahead and elect our reps now, because for that reason, I don't know that
But it's,
this board should not be left out of that reorganization process by virtue of not.
I agree.
but your email says we don't have to appoint anybody until April 4th.
That's for this vacancy.
Okay,
But
okay.
the SU doesn't care about our vacancy. They're gonna
Right.
move ahead and do their business.
Very nice.
They
Okay,
care.
thank you.
They-
Thank you.
they-
Thank you
for the
Make it-
clarification.
Keep it.
Okay.
Personal.
So if I understand correctly, the motion is to move forward with the 3 candidates that have been listed, myself, Glenn, Jeff.
And I only say that because put somebody on board, whether they've been on or not, and then say to them, oh, yes, now you're gonna be in the SVSU. That's kind of scary. So that's why maybe, next year they want, we vote fine, but I would just keep it this way.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I ask to take a vote for those 3 to represent our board on the SVSU.
Is it safe to say yes to your own nomination in this case? 'Cause
I
you
know,
did
'cause if you
before, I'm
don't-
asking the question.
I think that you always have the option of you're voting for the 3 together.
Okay,
Does that make you feel better?
sure.
Does that, Jeff, make you feel better?
It's only a third of a vote for you.
Or maybe 2/3 for the others?
Three.
Yeah. So all those in favor of the 3 proposed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, it's unanimous, so it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Um. So. I don't know, and I'm gonna turn to you, Chris, on this. Our school board association has asked that we do a motion for Robert's rules. And it is not on this agenda, so my question to you is that, should that be an agenda item for the next board meeting? Or because we're in an organizational situation that we can make a motion now?
So we as a board had a conversation a few months back about which statute comes to bear on this. There's one statute, 517, that says Robert's Rules of Order shall be used by school boards. There's a later statute that says at organization, a school board needs to elect to use Robert's Rules of Order. Dina has weighed in and said that later statute that we were discussing only applies to when union school districts are forming for the very first time. So when this board was formed by Act 46, that first organizational meeting is when we needed to elect Robert's Rules of Order, which this board did. What is not required is for us to do it every single year because we're covered by the earlier statute, I think 517.
So the school board association believes that any school board with fewer than 12 members must do so at their annual organization meeting. And that's so.
Yeah, I'm advising what the lawyer said. I don't know anything more about it other than when you look at the subchapters within Title 16, it very clearly says the one that says you have to elect Robert's rules is when school districts are first formed for the very first time, and that's clearly not our situation.
I can pop in too.
That's honor.
I think quite simply, if you want to put it on your next meeting agenda, I don't think it hurts to have that for you to adopt it that way either. But Chris is accurately, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about it. He's accurately portraying what I had said, but I don't think it hurts. If you want to put it on your agenda to do it, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for weighing in.
And I'm sorry, Sandy, if I could add one more thing to number 2. Another committee that hopefully you'll make an appointment to tonight is for our negotiations committee. So we're currently still in the midst of contract negotiations with teachers and support staff, and I've been serving in that capacity. I should only continue to serve in that capacity if appointed by the chair, though. So I'll put that out there.
It's actually not on this agenda, so.
We have all the committees we have to appoint to.
You have flexibility if you wanted,
Okay,
you could. Just going down your checklist, filling them out. If you wanted to, you could do that.
The negotiations committee is slated
Just
to meet
walk me
again on the 30th, so that's before we have a chance to meet again.
meet again.
Yeah.
And it is, as you shared with us so kindly, it is something that is, we're chair appointed. So if I could at least give a list of what the different, committee assignments are right now. And then if you could share with me that you're interested in any of the subcommittees, then that will be easier as well. And I have, is this a new one? Be lovely to have.
Oh, I just checked those because we've talked about those in other boards.
Yeah, it's good. I think
Like,
it's,
I'm not aware that this,
I don't think that's,
this is not
yeah. Yeah.
the standing committee. That's negotiations.
So, from what I can see, we are, but you missed one, well, not missed one, but we have the food service committee, we have the best educational use of facilities, which might actually fall under that facilities. I'm not sure if this is just us or if you have. Or if that's,
No, I'm sorry,
that's a bigger,
best.
okay. Policy negotiations, teacher. And then next year, maybe admin, I'm not sure.
Point of interest there, teach professionals together now in the agreement.
Thank you. Teacher and staff,
I call the state association.
Support staff.
support staff. So if you would kindly just zip me an email and then, I can, and you said the next meeting.
Is the 30th. March 30th is when the
30th.
negotiations meets.
I mean, I would say, this happened in the past with boards where the people serving were, changed. So, I mean, I'd say, if you're on that board and it's already work in progress, it's nice to keep the same people for continuity. Otherwise, it does create chaos.
Providing that that person wants to continue, I would like to add as well.
I agree, because under that same, but we did the same with the SVSU.
Yes, we did.
I feel like we do ourselves a disservice to try and take somebody who's been so involved out of the loop at this point.
I agree. But I also don't want to hold back on someone who may want to as well. So,
Did I pose that question?
I mean, I guess that Kurt would be willing to serve as.
yes, Chris, would you be willing? to
Yes, I'd be,
continue to
I'd be
serve?
willing to continue that work.
And we're grateful for that.
I'd like to stay on the board.
Thank you.
Good policy investigation.
Thank you.
I was best change as well, so I didn't have to stay there since that's not a thing.
We can scroll on. Facilities.
Okay. We still have, policy to, so please send me a QR. Thank you.
England, Georgia.
Thank you. Are you done with yours?
All your checklists, those are the agenda.
All right.
We have all the authorizations you need then?
Oh,
Yeah.
so the authorization to execute contracts, I don't know if you have that handy, or I can read it. So this is a motion that we ask the board for every year at reorganization. It came about from a monitoring visit we had with the Agency of Ed several years ago, when they asked about our purchase orders, which has my signature on them. And he said, technically, this purchase order is a contract. So the law states that only the chair or any person designated by the board, and it's recorded in the minutes, would then have authorization to sign contracts. So we brought it to legal. Legal drafted a motion for us to take every year, which reads, the motion would be to authorize the superintendent or his or her designee to execute on behalf of the school district purchase orders, agreements for consulting services, grant agreements, and other contracts arising affecting the routine operation of the SVUESD. The superintendent or designee shall not execute any contracts resulting from a public bid process, any employment agreements, or any long-term contracts without express authority from the board. This would essentially allow us to just, again, routine operation, day-to-day stuff, and regular contracts that would be less, up to 12 months.
So that is the motion on the floor.
So
Thank you. Thank you. Discussion? Any discussion on? No? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Unanimous. So, we're at the point of public comment.
Kelsey Kenyon, Arlington, Vermont, like permission to speak.
We do have time.
So I would like to start by saying thank you to the members of the board and Superintendent Payne. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about our students and our schools. The main thing I'd like to address tonight is honesty. To be honest with you, I'm probably too honest, but I'm honest nonetheless. I teach my students to be honest, and I encourage them to be honest even when it's hard and uncomfortable. At the December 2025 meeting, the board chair at the time, previous board chair, shared a fabricated narrative explaining his perspective on how we got to this point regarding the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't care if you're for or against the pledge. Honesty and transparency should be a priority. So tonight I'd like to share the truth with you. The previous board chair stated that in September of 2024, there was a request for an accommodation for a student to not be present during the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. This is not true. In September of 2024, a teacher received an email from a parent that said it had come to their attention that this teacher recited the Pledge of Allegiance in their classroom and that they would like to meet with the teacher to share their opinions. Administration was immediately made aware of this and they asked the teacher to set up a meeting. Administration reassured this teacher that the parents just wanted to share their feelings and that he would be in attendance. During that meeting, well, it's important to note that before the meeting officially started, the administrator and the parents were talking about how they saw mutual friends from the district recently and how they went out with mutual friends from the district for drinks the night before and whatnot. This is important because it shows that they are very close outside of school. Anyway, the meeting got started. The parents shared their many opinions. Dad was very aggressive, and the teacher was barely allowed to speak. However, when the teacher tried to offer other options and solutions, like having the student do a delivery, which they would have loved to do, the teacher was immediately shut down by the father and criticized for trying to exclude the student. However, it wasn't until Dad asked the teacher point blank, "So are you going to stop doing the pledge?" And the teacher politely said no, that he lit into her, aggressively attacking her character and threatening them. Yes, threatening. All while the administrator sat next to the teacher silently. At the end of the meeting, the administrator and the parents walked out of the room laughing and talking like old friends. A quick side note, days after this meeting, one of the teacher's car tires was punctured, which was very suspicious. The following morning, administration sat Mrs. Clark and the teacher down and told them they were no longer allowed to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's be clear. The definition of ban is to officially or legally prohibit. Some synonyms are forbid, block, stop. I don't think I need to go on. It was banned. Stop saying it wasn't because that's another lie. You also mentioned, previous board chair, that you reiterated at the October 8th, 2024 meeting that there was never a ban. I think I've made it clear that was also a lie. There was a ban. You only backpedaled because Mrs. Clark and I said something and the public took a stand. There was no intention of ever allowing us to say it again, or of our building principal getting together with students to come up with a plan for saying it, as you claim. All of this happened after we spoke up. After. You were absolutely backpedaling on the ban that was 100% put in place. Stop lying to the public to make yourself look good and get the outcomes you want. As of March 2nd, the Pledge of Allegiance has been recited every morning over the loudspeaker at 8:25 at Shaftesbury Elementary, and the positive feedback has been overwhelming. Students are lining up for the opportunity to lead the whole school in the pledge. First student to lead the school actually wrote a thank you note. She was grateful to have had that opportunity. Also, my coworker, who is not originally from the United States, said that she loves that we're doing it. She said it reminds her of when she was a little girl and first came to this country. The Pledge of Allegiance was the first thing she learned in English. She said it makes her feel proud to be an American when we do this together as a school. You kept that from them, previous board chair. You and your lies for a whole year. And I think the public deserves to know that. They have every right to know. So thank you again to the rest of the board for your time and your energy.
Could I please speak to? Like Ms. Kenyon said, there's been a delightful change at Shaftesbury Elementary School. There is now a morning announcement led by 2 Shaftesbury staff members. Each morning on the loudspeaker, they announce to stand if you choose to say the Pledge of Allegiance. There are also students that also do the pledge with these 2 staff members. Still, this is done at 8:25 before my class is in the school because school doesn't start until 8:30. About a quarter of my class is not given the opportunity to say the pledge due to this timing. It would be amazing if all of the students had a chance to say the Pledge of Allegiance if they choose to. It would be great if those students were not excluded and were given the chance to say the Pledge of Allegiance. This cannot happen unless the board puts the Pledge of Allegiance on the agenda to discuss. Thank you.
We listen now, and if we, at a future time, we can add it to the agenda. So Renee, is there anyone out there that is?
Don't see anybody else with a hand up. Nope.
Thank you. So can we move forward to the consent agenda? And I'll need a motion to approve. I don't know what we have. Oh, I see. We have minutes, warrants, retirements, resignations, nominations. It as part of the consent agenda. I'll need a motion to approve.
A motion to move those as one.
Glenn and second, Cindy second. All those in favor of moving forward with the consent agenda, approving them, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stay, no.
Tim, you have the warrant somewhere, right?
I do.
Signing. Thank you.
Renee's keeping me on my toes.
The next,
You have a pen?
I have a pen.
Okay, let's start with here. Sorry.
the next piece is the finance. There is a Shasberry trustees school fund dollars. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I'm hoping our superintendent can help me.
Don't, Renee's gonna have to help me.
Annual funds that come in from the Shaftesbury trustees for specifically for Shaftesbury School. So we just need, as usual, to accept the money. We do keep it in a separate fund for them to use to support their school activities.
Would we accept these funds?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Cindy. All those in favor of approving the Shasberry trustees school fund dollars, signify by saying aye.
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 Next up.
Aye. Thank you. And Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's unanimous. FY 27 budget, which I'm guessing Renee, you'll be leading us in discussion.
Good evening, everybody. So we all know that the budget was defeated by 18 votes on town meeting day. So it is our responsibility, by law, to go back and put it back out to a vote. So I put together a document there that I will share on the screen as well for any folks that might be watching at home. Do that, but it's not letting me that. Yeah. So just to kind of recap, the budget, current year's budget, 33,128,598. Budget that we put to voters, was just $371,000, 228, 1.1% higher. Because we did do some work on that before we adopted it, as the board. Just to give you some context, if we limited it to a 1% increase, we would need to shave just under $40,000 off. Of course, the homestead taxes that are a result of whatever we determine for the budget do vary by town. And that's because each municipality does have a different common level of appraisal. And then we know that since we're a union elementary district, we share students with the union high school district. So the proportion from each town is varies a little bit. So that's what ends up driving such differences between the tax rate increases. So with the budget that was defeated, Bennington was looking at almost a 24.5 cent increase. Pownell just under 17 cents, Shaftesbury about 25.5 cents, and Woodford was about 13 cents. To give you a little bit more context, if we wanted to try to reduce a penny, and again, this varies by town, but roughly approximately $370,000 would reduce a penny. And then doubling that would reduce it 2 pennies and so on and so forth. So significant dollars would have to come out of that budget to move that tax rate. And this is a function of not only the expenditure budget, our offsetting revenues, and then of course what our common level of appraisal is, and then what has been set or recommended by the tax commissioner for the homestead property yield. We did learn earlier this week, with a meeting with legislators, that the education fund outlook looks a little bit better than when the tax commissioner put their December 1st letter out, which means they will possibly be able to raise that homestead property yield when the legislature votes on it later in the spring. And that will help bring our tax rates down as well. But there's no definitive number yet for me to be able to share that with you. But things look like they're going in the right direction to help property taxes go down. So,
Can I just pause for a moment? Because I'm gonna repeat this. We've been saying this to folks for months now. There are two things in the budget conversation you and I don't control. The number of kids who go to school, which across the state is becoming smaller and smaller number, and the common level of assessment, which is basically the state thinks your house is worth this much, and in reality, it's this much. A lower number makes it harder. It's a bigger burden for us to carry as far as raising property taxes in Pownell, where I live, or Shaftesbury or Bennington, wherever you might live. And I'm gonna plug this in the public a lot and exclude, if the legislature does not address this current situation, we will all find ourselves again in November in the same spot. There will be fewer kids here. The CLA for your homes will still not be where the state, and they will manipulate it. I shouldn't say that. They will make adjustments between now and June. That is what Renee is talking about. The economy might be brighter. We might be not have to raise taxes. But I really encourage people to reach out to your elected officials and talk to them about fixing the current funding process. Because we are going to talk this evening about how much do you want to cut, what number is helpful to your community, but also within that paragraph are two things. Your request to the community went up 1.1%. That is amazing. That's the lowest number of any school district in this SVSU. I would encourage you to look at cutting a percentage instead of getting bogged down in, hey, could I save a penny in Pownell? Could I save a penny in Bennington? Because as Renee said, that number will fluctuate and that may just frustrate you. You can also see a penny is going to cost you $370,000 in a cut. I live in Pownell. You would have saved me, instead of paying 17 cents, I'm going to pay 16 cents. I appreciate it, but I would encourage you to look at the percentage. And I'll end that's for the folks watching. I know you folks all understand it, but
Yes. Sandy, if I could I would say one more thing, the third thing we can't control, which is huge, and maybe as a separate to your point, is healthcare. We don't negotiate those rates locally. Those rates are negotiated well outside of our control.
And to piggyback on that, it isn't just that they're going up significantly, and correct me, Renee, if I'm wrong. So what was for a family plan, $17,000 last year is now $44,000 this year. That means that 20% is for our staff and teachers to pay for, but 80% is for the taxpayers. And that is a huge and significant increase. So yes, that healthcare goes up. Yes, that is done by legislation. We do not control that. And that is a lot of money. And yes, we do want our families to have healthcare and access to healthcare. Those numbers are astronomical, and it is what I brought up at the Pownell meeting for our senators and representatives, because that is not something we can control. And it's frustrating. I'm certainly sure it's frustrating for anyone in accounting to know, but it's also frustrating for our families to pick up that tab. And it's frustrating for us as taxpayers to pick up the 80% as well. So there are a lot of pieces that we do not have control over. And we need to figure out as a board what direction to go to help our community understand what challenges we have and that we face as a board.
The healthcare is for all municipal workers in the state of Vermont. They're
Yes.
one contract, so it's not just teachers, it's your
Yes.
town clerks, your town employees, your town maintenance crews. Your state workers, you know, but, you know, it's only for municipal, because they all fall in the municipal category. So, you know, it's like, if you're a worker, if you're a town employee, you know, that you have the same health care as teachers. So, you know, we can't control that, and it's a contract from the state. So we can't pull on pick Aetna from Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're locked in, as the state's guidelines.
And the rate is locked in from the state as well. And that is indeed precedent.
And this year's increase of 8% is historically low. It's usually 10 to 14% on it.
Last year it's 13%. So last 2 years, you're looking at 20% increase in healthcare cost.
Yep.
So it is a lot.
If I could, we are insured through the Vermont Education Health Initiative, which is its own thing.
Umbrella and then.
Yeah, so I don't want to mislead anybody in that the municipal employees have the same insurance, because we are exclusively offered our insurance through the Vermont Education Health Initiative Beehive, which is a subset of the Vermont School Board's Insurance Trust.
But falls under the same umbrella, the state.
So they have regulations that they have to follow. So they work with actuaries, and they have to have so much money in their reserves and whatnot. So they forecast what they think they're going to need for the coming year. They then have to submit information to the Department of Financial Regulation annually to say, this is what we think we need for health insurance increases to sustain those reserves and basically keep the company afloat. So it is somewhat transparent, and that they're upfront saying, like, we need this money to be able to keep insuring everyone. But it's ultimately the Department of Financial Regulation that ends up approving those rates. So, yeah, and they've been double-digit increases the last several years. So for it to be just under 8% this year is an anomaly as of recent. So, but with that, I put a couple of things on the paper, here are possible considerations that would not impact staff. So
Sorry,
Oh,
before, I would ask members to consider the question in two parts. Do you want to lower the percentage of increase in the budget that you're looking for? And then we're going to give you some things to think about, and you're going to tell us, we want you to go and look for, if you decide on cuts, we want you to go look in this direction, leave this alone. So we'll try to give you some options.
I feel like this is a time we ask for the consideration. As we failed at a 1% increase, yet MAU passed at a 4% increase and SVSU passed at.
SVSU, which was voted on by the board, was 2.5. Yeah, but 2.5 was Arlington.
You know,
so.
I look to, you know, our taxpayers, our constituents, our families to say, why did one get through by 4% and the other one not by 1%? If it was an education thing that we didn't do as a board, I'd like to learn from it so that we don't see it happen again. Or if I could just appeal to everyone's, you know, kind of financial sense that, you know, we presented one, which is historically
Anomaly.
an anomaly.
Well, that being, I'm sorry. So sorry.
I'm gonna change the ringtone.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That makes me feel better. It's saying that
Now I know there's a partner on the.
technology.
My apologies, so sorry. Go ahead, Cindy.
When the people voted no, that's because at the time it was 13%. We're not talking 1%. So if we're gonna decide to re-vote, what
Yeah.
does that mean? Does it mean we're gonna vote again for?
The expenditure budget was up 1.1%, but what we're required to put on the ballot is what that expenditure is, plus our offsetting revenue, and then divided by our weighted students.
And I don't think the general public understands.
Oh,
that.
why would they?
Right.
Because it's so
higher.
complicated.
You're absolutely right, though. So if you go in like I did and you vote 13%, are you crazy? I'm not voting for this. And it goes to this weird math problem. The board was being honest with folks. You're spending $39,000 more this year than you did last year. Great work. But you have a smaller number of kids being divided into. So with that goofy math, it cranks it up. And we're required by law to show you this is a 13% increase. I can totally understand people reading that and saying, I'm out, I'm not. But we're being honest with you. Your budget went up $39,000, it's 1%. But when they turn the math to it, it scares people on the ballot.
You did an awesome job
In,
and I respect that. But again, if we're gonna have a revote and it's gonna come out 13% again, what do you think those, still probably more people are gonna vote no than yes?
think with an explanation, and I don't mean to put you in the spot, Superintendent Payne, but you happen to have taken another issue and made a roadmap out of it that really made an excellent explanation. Can we do the same for our next vote? To hopefully have people fully informed what one number means in relation to the other.
Yeah.
And we were presented with some options like reaching out to PTG, PTA, PTO, whatever boards, having people there, spread awareness, people being at the polling sites, things like that for upcoming, to share and spread awareness with this, but coming up with some sort of, again, another unified message like we had listed
Yep.
out on the website and it's been shared. And Chris had a nice, message that he had shared on some social media platforms previously. So, spreading that awareness and reaching people further, hopefully in some capacity.
Please.
So I understand, I think Director Gordon was trying to take us in a direction, but if we're talking about kind of our strategy, forget about like how we're going to revise the budget, which we need to. I think discussion of strategy is also important. It feels like we're getting in that direction, but if you don't want us to go there yet, Sandy, then I'll withhold my thoughts on that.
I wanted to hear what everyone had to say, and I also want to hear what the community has to say, because it was the community who decided that they didn't like this number. And I know that we only have a couple of weeks before our next meeting in April, so there is a little bit of time. I would love to have some input either to our superintendent or to myself or to someone in your community so that we know where you feel that it would be best to help us make this decision. This is a tough decision. We are a board who loves our schools and we want to support our schools as best as we can. And we also respect the taxpayers as well. So there's a balance there between the two, and we missed that mark. And so now we need to reassess and decide which way will we go.
Yeah, but they also look at the ballot too. For MAU, 223 more people voted for MAU versus the SVSU board budget. So, there's a disconnect there with the numbers.
I think one factor is that North Bennington voted on MAU. North Bennington does not vote here. And the vote rates in North Bennington were overwhelmingly in support
Mhm.
of the MAU budget.
Yep.
And those, I would call them pro-budget votes were taken out of our equation. So I think that's one of those factors. And when you talk about like, well, why did this pass and that not,
Mhm.
that's one of the factors.
So you guys, you said North Bennington is the side. If they voted all MAU, if they report on MAU might have failed.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, and they did vote, and what North Bennington, I don't mean to imply that North Bennington voted all for MAU, but overwhelmingly for MAU.
Yes.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Definitely, no, definitely.
Definitely,
That they did definitely, yes.
The chair has asked about an April meeting. We should share some timelines with folks as you set your calendars. There are some requirements by statute. Done the research, we want you to have that in your brain too, because we're gonna go through this process.
So just to quickly run down through what I have here on the screen. We want to make sure that we can have a passed budget before the end of this fiscal year, if at all possible. In order to do that, we would need to come up with a number, but we have to give at least 20 days notice from when basically you guys would meet to approve a warning for what would be called a special meeting. It's gonna be a special election. We would have to have at least 20 days from that point of when you approve it. It gets posted as a public notice. So we can't do it any fewer than that. And then we also have to have a public informational hearing, which we do when we have our, special meetings anyway. That has to be at least 5 days after the public notice. And then, of course, the budget or the revote itself would have to be at least 7 days after the notice. So even though statute is written from the date of public notice, I think we would probably look at it as picking the date we want to have the revote, making sure that we're at least that 20 days out, and then kind of backing into when we're going to hold the public informational hearing. And as long as, we're in that 20-day window, we don't have to worry about that 7-day revote period.
So for fun, we plugged in calendar days just to see what it looks like for you folks. So if you're like me, I struggle when Renee's like, now back up 5 days and go forward a day, and I don't know where I'm at. If this evening you gave us directions and say, look, we want it to be, I'll pick a random number, 0.5%. That's all we want to see. We want to see a 0.5% increase on the budget. The chair would then have to say, okay, I need to haul you back next Tuesday, have a special meeting, because then you'd have to say, this is what we're putting forward. That would be the 24th of March. The next day, we can do this. We would pass this through Dina, we would post this to the clerk, and we could hit a March 25th public notification. That's March 25th. Using that, your public information meeting would be April the 7th. Again, these are just, you can totally change this calendar, but I'm just telling you how far you put it out. And your vote would be April 14th. That is, if you give us directions, you're gonna have to come back next week. The chair will ask you, you're gonna support this? Yes, we are. We'll notify. We have a public meeting. The earliest we can vote would be April 14th. The following week, by the way, is school break. And we want to encourage folks to come out and vote and all that. So probably want to take advantage of folks not being in somewhere warm and sunny that week. But does that help? Does folks get a sense of, the 20 days, the 50, all that? Okay.
Yeah, so that would be the earliest right now that we would likely, because if this board was to make any decisions tonight, we would need to get that information to Dina for her to draft a warning, get another meeting warned for you to then come back and approve the warning. And then once it's approved and signed, as Tim said, we'd get it to Kayla Thompson, our district clerk, to get it posted, and then the clock starts ticking. So that date of meeting next Tuesday to approve that warning would give you 21 days until the vote. So, and it would be posted the next day, which would be the 20th day. So that is like as close as it could be.
It's a lot to process.
Oh, yeah. Again, the other things that I had up here, just to not thinking about staff, but some, easier things, would be looking at the budget included. It was level funded from what we had in for facilities projects in this current year. So it's just shy of $750,000. Now, on our narratives that I had in the budget documents, I always keep these reserve numbers in there so you have an idea as to what's in these reserve funds. Now, they're separate from Bennington, Powell, Shaftesbury, and Woodford because those were all established and generated back when those school districts were individual. So once the SVUESD was formed, we kept those separate, and those funds have been used specifically for those buildings. Once the SVUESD formed, we continued to put money into a reserve fund, and that's the SVUESD capital reserve that has $650,000 in it. So that money could be used for any of the buildings. So we could essentially pull, $750,000 out of this budget and look to our reserve funds to do those projects next year or postpone them for another year. So that was one option that's not going to impact your staff, right? The Woodford budget is just shy of $600,000. Again, not impacting staff, assuming all those staff would go back into other buildings, could be about a savings of $400,000. And that I would keep at least $100,000 just for the building utilities upkeep and grounds maintenance. Though the specials teachers would either go back into the schools where the majority of their FTEs are being held, or they could perhaps support programming at Beach Street. So some things to consider there. I did note the Act 73 class size minimums, which is in the second page of your handout. And what I have highlighted here, we know that class size minimums go into effect July 1. It will be an average, but grade 1 class size minimum is 10. Grades 2 through 5 is going to be 12, and those schools that have 6th grades in them would have a minimum class size of 15. So these counts that I have here for the schools were taken March 6th. I essentially took all of those students that are enrolled in each of those schools in each grade and advanced them 1 grade. And then I added in the kindergarten line what early ed knows right now for potential incoming kindergarten students for those schools. And then the smaller number in parentheses is the number of classroom sections in each of those grade spans for each school. So Pownell next year, again, just a kind of a snapshot in time, but we'll have 2 grades that will not be meeting the class size minimums. Shaftesbury will have 3, and then Woodford will not meet any of the class size minimums because the school is too small. The other thing with Woodford too is that there's a grade span of 7 grades because you're K through 6. There's only 3 teachers there. You cannot have more than 2 grades combined in a basically shared. So you couldn't have like a K1-2 class. It could only be a K1 or a 1-2. So just to put that out there, the AOE is currently kind of working through how they're going to do data collection, how they're going to do accountability, but it will be an average. But these are just things to think about because it is the law and it goes into effect July 1. So just wanted to point that out. And if I bounce back to the front page, the other thing that is an option for the board to consider, aside from looking at your expenditure budget, which is what we're going to be asking the public to vote on, right? That's what goes on that ballot article is your expenditure budget. We could pull in some revenue from that general reserve that we set up a few years ago. Some of you were on the board then. We had a pretty significant fund balance one year, and we had asked voters prior to that if they gave the board authority to basically look at that annually and say, can we maybe do without having this all as offsetting revenue and put it aside in the reserve fund? The voters supported that. So in one given year, we actually did take $800,000 out of our offsetting revenue, put it in a general reserve. So that's sitting there for use too, that we could pull back in for projects. We could use it for tax stabilization, which would be pulling it back into revenue. So that's there as well. And I think the only other thing I had on this sheet was just to kind of give you an idea of the special election costs. And I'm estimating that we're going to be looking at least $3,000 pop. So if we can, hold one election and the budget passes, great. But if we have to do it again, like every time we open the polls, it'll be, probably at least $3,000. Just something to consider there. So if there's anything else I could do that would be helpful, please let me know. But
I have a quick question. I don't want to go too far off topic, and you don't have to necessarily get into the details right now, but just with the Woodford information that you had shared, I know when this came out, they were looking at exceptions, and there was no definitions on some of those exceptions yet. Has that been defined yet on what meets? No, okay.
No, but I think they're gonna look at, like geographic isolation. And I think we would probably have a tough sell with that, with a school being within 3 miles. I think it's gonna be more for like, the Grand Island, like, there are literally schools like on the island.
Yeah.
That are not gonna meet those.
I just was curious if they had come out with.
Not yet. I think that's gonna be something that the State Board of Ed is gonna be tasked with. We do have some guidance from the AOE, but not small by necessity definition yet.
So I'm curious about the savings of $400,000 from the Woodford School. If all of those teachers are moving from that spot to another spot, then you haven't saved any money from that.
They would, that's in, assuming that they would be going into vacant teaching positions, and historically, throughout the SVUESD, we'll probably see at least a dozen teacher vacancies annually, right? At least at some point, and I know we have 2 already.
And
So-
and I know that some of the special teachers are in dual schools.
Yes.
And maybe that other school may not have a full-time spot for them. So
That's not part of the 400,000. That has to stay in the budget as they have received contracts for those FTEs. So it would just be,
but did they receive it as a full-time position somewhere?
it varies by employee.
But they have those jobs, the 0.9 and the monument is the 0.1 over there, so.
Right, so that 0.1 means that we're going,
Well, we already have contracts.
and
And
when is
budget and they would retain in the budget.
for 1.0, even though that 0.1 that might be in Woodford is no longer there.
That's kind of something.
I just want.
Yeah, the specials teachers, so your PE, music. The librarian, the art, it's less than $50,000. So when you look at the almost $600,000, we'd be saving 400, keeping 100. And then the 50 and also other 50 is like the building projects that we had budgeted. But we do have students at Beach Street, right? And we don't have specials there. So I think we could get creative with assigning them duties, places where they could be used.
Just a last loop around, this is going into law where we don't, July 1st, I don't want to make this like, Renee's problem. But the state hasn't got anything figured out, continues to have everything change, wildly in numbers on a monthly, if not weekly basis. And they're ready to, and I don't want to use, they're ready to implement this wonderful plan July 7th. And we need to have our ducks in a row because that's our job. But July 1st, I'm sorry, I want to give us 6 extra days. Accurate.
Yes, and there were other, listening to some legislative sessions, the discussions at House Ed, that there were school boards that were grappling with this exact issue and trying to figure it out in their budget for next year.
Is this a 3-year rolling average is what they're anticipating?
We don't exactly know how they're gonna calculate those averages.
And I think that, sorry,
No, please.
I think what they said, I think at least one version of it said that if it's not met by year 3, the state has the option of taking control. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but like, so it's not like, we'll give you 3 years and then we'll talk. It's if you don't have it in 3 years, we're coming in.
So I want to share right now because I feel it's important for our board to understand that in the early 1970s, the town of Woodford was approached by both the National Forest and the State Forest and asked to give up their land on the tax rolls in order to have a national forest and a state forest. And the community of Woodford said, hey, wait a minute, we get that money for our schools, for our towns. How could you possibly think that we're going to just give that up? And what the state and the federal people said was, hey, we're gonna keep giving that money so that you can operate your schools and your towns. And so that money came and had been there for years and years and years. And then Act 64 came through. 46, yeah, came through and said, nope, now we're all gonna be one big happy district. And so that money that had been allocated to that Woodford school and to decrease the taxes for the citizens of Woodford went into this big pile of funds. So the citizens of Woodford lost that ability and that to lower their tax rate when all that money went into the big budget. So now the state has come back, is coming to us or is initiating this piece that states it's time to look at schools that have low enrollment. Now, remember, those lands couldn't be sold to build houses because they were used for national and state forests. And I grapple with that. I have a hard time saying, oh, well, we still have beautiful cross-country skiing and snowmobiling and lakes and campgrounds. And the town gave up that ability to have those lands built on and to make their town grow in order for all of us to benefit. So I have a tough time with that option. And I just wanted to share that with this board so that you understand my perspective.
I mean, honestly, if you look at the projected student enrollment, those numbers, the certain numbers should be eventually happen some sixth graders, Shasta Town. I mean, if you look at the numbers, we're 200 to 180. Next year, NAU, it looks like 116 sixth grade versus 164 this year versus 212 next year. So, I mean, I think eventually, those kids have to go. And there's plenty of room in those.
It's the same thing that's happening with seventh and eighth graders.
Yep. If you look at those numbers and you think K1, 2, and 3 were 130. So, we're cut in half almost from our largest group there. The eighth grade. So,
I am of the thought that because of Act 73 and maybe just in the name of sheer fiscal responsibility, Woodford School needs to look different than it does right now for sure. I don't know that we should necessarily rush in to pick that as our option for right now, because that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
I agree.
And I think we should not this, I mean, if we were to go out with a revised budget and have lost again, maybe that is in terms of strategy. Maybe we say, hey, Woodford voters, we don't want to put the school on the chopping block, but we might have to if the second one doesn't run. I'm not suggesting we do that, but maybe we do that. I think instead, what I'd like to do is to find some savings otherwise in some of these ways that Director Gordon has put out there.
yeah.
But I think the fact is, like, we just, let me finish that. We have to wrap our heads around the fact that Woodford School is going to have to look different than it does right now.
Dina.
So I'm sorry, and Chris, I wasn't going to interrupt you. There are two things I want the board to understand. Under your articles of agreement, in order to close one of your elementary schools, it has to be a vote of your Union Elementary School District towns. So every town gets to vote on it. So that is something then you have to consider timing wise as well. We can factor it, we can absolutely, if that's a decision that's made, we can factor it in. I'm not trying to put my thumb on the scale for anything of that nature, but there's also the issue that if that is a possibility that you're contemplating, if you close a school and you don't use it for any educational purposes, you have to offer it back to the town of Woodford for $1. That's also in your articles of agreement. So if, that is not a small conversation to have as well. But I think what Renee is trying to do is give you what your options are. The other thing I wanted to move back so that you understand in terms of your vote, and Renee didn't necessarily put the lawyers, uptightness on what she presented to you. The 20-day issue is because before you have a vote is because you have to permit at least 20 days so that absentee ballots can be requested. Because we're not asking you to do the option of where you pay for printing and sending out absentee ballots to all of your registered voters. That is cost prohibitive. So you have to have the 20 days so that your absentee ballots can be requested for your budget vote. So those are the three things I just wanted to make sure I put in.
Yes.
Dina, in terms of the vote to close the school, I'm remembering at some point, and maybe this was during the first 5 years of this board, was it not the legal provision you needed to have 2 years of consideration before you could vote to close the school?
Right.
Yeah, you're past all of the year requirements, all of
Okay.
the prohibitions and limitations, you all are past. I think the last prohibition ended 22. I'd have to look quickly
But
at
this, so
the,
at this point, we're just to the point we could just, it's solely a vote. We put it on the ballot and we vote, that we don't have to wait any other chunk of time. Am I understanding that correctly?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'd forgotten about that.
Is there
provision.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
You also
So-
had it also for, in terms of if you're gonna reconfigure what schools look like, that prohibition and limitation is also removed. I should put that out there as well.
Well, Renee, what we could do is we could take the reserve funds and use those for existing projects coming up. We pull that money from the budget this year.
Right, and because we would come to you anyway,
Yeah.
before we accessed
Reserve.
those reserve funds, project by project, and, we could ask Holly to reconsider, what she had on the docket for next year as well, so.
So like Shasbury needed a new roof per se, I'm not saying it needs one, but we could pull that reserve fund money to do the roof versus put in the budget.
Correct.
So. Even if we take all those reserve funds, except for the SVUESD 650, if you cut those all in half and use those, that's $311,000 there, which is a quick chunk. That's that 1%. And the money's there for projects in this buildings anyways.
So the other option might be to consider taking part of the capital reserve and part of the general reserve as a chunk and a chunk of each. Or does it not matter?
I'd say if you did 50% with the buildings, then 25% capital for the SVSU. Yeah, put us close to 1,000.
Right, because if we knock out that increase and we have no increase in the budget, then
Then it's gonna be hard.
that it would pass.
Well, maybe.
I mean, I said you would hope.
Yeah, because that means we are at zero or
Right.
state, but then see, that's all the state
No, I'm,
issue.
To get to a 0%, how much would you estimate we had to cut? Renee?
From the original budget that we put to voters, it's 371,228.
But again, we're up against the messaging issue of people not understanding that 0% is still gonna equal, it's gonna be like 12.5%
Yeah.
per pupil increase. So that's the messaging piece that we need to figure out how to battle.
I'm gonna drag us into the mud a little bit here, and I apologize, but this was done on a state level, and it appears that we're considering it on a local level. There's been 2 years worth of tax rate buy downs. Unless we have, it's St. Patrick's Day and it's,
Look the Irish.
well, pots of gold and things like that. This is the only reserve capital that we have.
Correct.
But that being said, if you look at each of the school districts, they also have a reserve in them. Should,
Consider those funds.
But we
in this
count
thing.
adding into the SVSESD over the years too.
Mhm.
Some years put zero in them or minimal or half.
Yeah, like this budget, we pulled, we're not adding to the reserve next year, we pulled that.
We want that reserve there for those emergency things.
So this, okay, so this might be a good time to just share what was shared at the VSBA. So the Vermont School Board Association had a webinar for the 19 boards whose budgets failed across the state. And there were boards where it fell by many votes. There was one board where it failed by 6 votes, which I don't know if it would be better or worse to fail by 6 votes or fail by 200 votes, but like still, so a wide area of experiences. And the message that came through loud and clear from VSBA is whatever you decide, getting the budget passed is a matter of getting out in front of people and being able to send clear, consistent messages to as many people as you can for as long as you can, as loudly as you can. So because we're talking, because we're looking at cutting, if we cut $500,000, it's gonna drop Tim's 17 cents to 15 cents like that. I don't know that we can make a meaningful decrease in what we're asking. I think we have to revise it. That's what the law says. It doesn't say how much we have to revise it. I think really what we should also be spending a lot of energy in is figuring out that strategy of getting it out there. That means us understanding the complexities so we can then explain the complexities to people. So I put that out there to make a pitch because I don't want us to cut ourselves down to the bone and still and then be complacent, think like, oh, of course they'll vote for it now, right? It has to be vision and strategy.
And it also was an awful election day as well. I mean, it's snowy, I'm driving home going, we're gonna go vote today. Because the roads are that way. Well, that's not that.
Yes, yes.
That was funny.
And
Well,
do you have a question or is?
I did, well, more of a question comment. When Chris put like a public service announcement up on Facebook, that was very good, by the way. I shared it. Some of my friends called and asked me about it. But then up at the polls, people were looking at that ballot and they were seeing that little percentage sign down there in the middle or on the corner. And, I'm trying to tell them, that's, it's different, but whatever. People get scared of that, especially up in Shasbury, because, all around taxes have gone up, stuff like that. We're trying to save this and that, but they don't understand this. And I'm having a hard time kind of wrapping my brain around some of it. Really, so I'll probably be reaching out to y'all after the meeting, because there's some things I'm making notes on some things that I don't understand. So I can't explain to the people what this is if I don't understand it. And I won't give out false information, but, so I'll have to reach out to you guys afterwards. There's a couple of things. I won't get into it now. Well, there's a lot of things. Okay, so I won't get into it now, some of the wordage is all new to me. So, I'll reach out afterwards. I'll corner Jeff down at Paulins. That's what I'll do.
Renee, when we do present this again, there were a few years back where we used to do giant graphs that actually showed what the increases. Do you remember those back in the day? Do you think maybe we could create a few? No.
That was another Renee that used to.
I thought they were very helpful because you got a visual, you got to clearly see.
The one that we used last year, I think, was the tax rate, and clearly like that graph is not going to
Sure.
be helpful. We could look at budget increases. The UED has only been in existence, for a handful of years, so there's not a lot of history, but we've definitely had some years where it spiked, so I just don't know if it's gonna give you the trajectory that you really want.
Has a dollar amount, perhaps a dollar amount might be better. I don't know. I'm just asking. Yeah, because that might help to share. And also the piece on this health insurance, just phenomenally total increase. I feel bad even for the 20% that our staff will have to pay for, and equally bad for the 80% the rest of us will be.
I can certainly, I'll put something together when the board decides where you want to land for this revote. We can definitely look at maybe some graphics that would be helpful.
I would make a suggestion. Sandy, you had a good point. Cindy had a good point. Looking at this, if you, as a board, you said, you know what, we're gonna go zero. We're gonna take 370 and change out of the individual reserves and defer, take it out of your maintenance, but use the reserve to backfill it. And it's zero. It doesn't address Cindy's initial comment, but you can create a talking point about, look, we went up 0%, but because the funding system is broken, We're gonna have fewer kids. My house isn't as worth as much as the state thinks it is. They're gonna just kill me with taxes. This is what a zero does. It's still gonna go up 10%, but a zero is, everybody here has some business experience. A zero is cut. As Sandy just said, your insurance just took it out of you, your cost of living just took it out of you, your utilities just took it out of you. If I think it's zero, I like your idea. If you say it's a zero, that's gonna be on a tagline and a page of 0%. But we can then talk about the system's broken. Your taxes are still gonna, I think you're okay telling people straight up. We did our part, taxes are still going up. Call Mary Morrissey. Love you, Mary. I know she's watching. She's been great. She's been listening to me, but I liked your idea. I be in this, but you guys give us some direction and we can go from there.
I just wanted to add, I think, like she said, right, understanding it and having like the public understand it when maybe we're not fully grasping how to explain it to people has been challenging. But I'm not sure, even with understanding that it was only going up 1.1%, I don't think I actually saw the numbers written out like this to see like, okay, here was last year's actual budget numbers and here were this year's actual budget numbers in the stuff that circulated to realize what that 1% actually equates to and that it's like such a small number in that huge, 33 million. So maybe even adding it, breaking it down like that and showing just like such a small number because like 1% is 1%, but like, what does that actually look like? So seeing like, oh, the budget was 33 million last year, the budget's still 33 million. Like, it feels a lot different than like, okay, like it's gone up $1 million or something, because nobody has an idea what 1% is unless they see the numbers. But I think like that to me was really like, wow, it didn't change much, even though I knew that.
And yet it still gets cut because we're still paying a bigger chunk
Right.
to our health insurance costs. So if I am hearing this board correctly, we are moving forward a 0%. Asking Renee to bring us to that 0%. What I am unsure of is whether it is going to come out completely from the capital reserve or from the general reserve. Or
It would come out of your expenditure budget. It would be my recommendation. So of that, 749,000, we would just reduce that by the 371,228.
thank you.
That'll get you to the 0% increase. And then we don't touch the reserves until we get to a point where we're out of money with the remaining $400,000 there.
Yes.
Say, hey, we have this project that we need to do. Will you allow us to use, $75,000 out of this to put a boiler in a school or something?
Can we get a list of what the projected projects are? I know somebody alluded to it before.
Be on the facility committee that you're on, aren't you?
Glenn, I can guarantee you by building that will be available to you.
Okay, that came on fast.
So, I would like to have a motion to, Renee to move this forward to a 0% budget increase, so that we're flat. Completely flat, is this correct in this motion? This way? Yes,
I make the motion.
Cindy will make the motion, we have a second,
Go ahead.
Corinne, second? All those in favor of?
So
oh,
wait
sorry.
for the discussion is,
Please.
so I just have a question. So are we giving Director Gordon a direction where to pull that money from specifically? And does it need to be does it need to be in the motion? And I guess,
The expenditure, yeah, it
so
doesn't,
that, but from which expenditure, what expenditures are we now not going to fund by this the $39,000?
well, the other was a revenue, what the general reserve was a revenue.
Right. So I'm not asking my question
I
clearly.
think I understand what you're saying. So my clarification just that is that out of this 749,663, she's gonna take the 371,000.
That is my question. Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
that is my
And
question.
then if we need to fund something and we don't have the money for it, then it comes from these other capital reserves later on that we would vote on.
And should we put that in the motion? Or is Director Gordon feeling comfortable that the motion on the floor is sufficient for what we're asking you to do?
You want to add it?
Your attorney is nodding their head and saying you should give the specific direction.
Is that what you're asking? So
I-
perhaps the chair would ask the person who made the motion to modify it in the way that Stephanie described, that I was unable to wrap my tongue around.
Great, Cindy, would you please modify, to list the that we are going to, have a 0% budget and that will come out of the budgets for facility maintenance projects.
Well said, yes, I'll make that motion. That motion.
And Corinne, would you like to second?
I will second it.
Great. And Dana's shaking her head, yes. Like, that's okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Aye. All those in favor of having Renee move this to a 0% coming from that facility, projects, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous? Thank you. Wow. Yeah, and that's number 5 out of 13, so we are moving forward.
So may we discuss specific strategy points at this point?
Strategy for,
Or we're getting the word out about the, that we're going to warn soon,
do you think that we could wait until the next, our
Right.
next meeting?
which will be next week, I think.
Which is-
Yep, yep,
Yeah,
100%.
Gonna be my question. So are we gonna try to do this for April 14th, like? Or are we gonna?
no, if I understand our board correctly, that we would like to move forward now with this?
She's saying that the vote would be April 14th at the thing, which I.
Oh, is that before our next?
Nope, that
Is your meeting.
that's the one we'll walk through. So a special meeting next Tuesday, 24th.
The 24th, 5:30.
Yeah, you come right back in. It should be a one item, well, public
It'll be
comment, one item.
Yeah, moving that.
And you would then say, yep, we support as warned and approved by Dina. And then we would notify, do the public notice the next day. We'd have an information meeting scheduled for the 7th of April. That meets the deadline, and voting on a Tuesday, April 14th.
And can we add on that a strategy session as well?
Tuesday.
To the Tuesday agenda.
Yeah, as part of the Tuesday agenda.
And I have confirmed with just about all the town clerks that April 14th will work for polls to be open. Shaftesbury was the only one that was a little questionable because apparently they're relocating their offices. But as long as we have the date picked, hopefully she'll be able to roll with that.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
So can I just ask Tim, can you just make sure that you send it to me in writing exactly what the amount is, what the date is, where, and the date, can we pick a date, please, for your informational meeting?
Absolutely.
Thank
Got
you. The board should pick a date, I'm sorry, for your
It's
information.
April 7th.
Okay,
April 7th.
For the informational, not for the special meeting. March date is still the special.
Fortunately, this process requires lots of extra meetings.
Yeah, in my Bible.
You got both dates?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
Thank you. How are we comfortable to move forward? Yes, this is the part where we get to discuss the process for our open board seat. We have a need or position open for Bennington or a resident Bennington. And how would we like to discuss how to move forward? And in the past, I know that we have, as a board, taken letters of interest from those people who are residents of Bennington or residents of the town to serve on board. So, Chris, I'm asking, did you have a different thought on how to move forward with that board seat?
Not a different thought. Until today, I just said, like, send it with me, but that's not a board decision. We should, as a board, we should figure out, one, where people should send those letters to. Two, we should figure out at what point we're gonna sit down and make that decision. And then maybe there's not even a 3, but like, we need to at least do those 2 things. We need to formalize the process and then figure out when we're gonna make the decision.
Clarify, possession of 2 letters of interest?
I have I have copies of the letters from the 2 people we've received, and that's a thing we can discuss in executive session because we're not supposed to talk about them.
But we'll still be able to just hand them over to Sandy. We don't have to, that like a grant.
Yeah, for sure.
This problem in the past with the Shasbury, I think Shasbury.
Shasbury has happened,
We
yeah.
actually interviewed, we read the resume rather than for interview, just to ask questions.
That, and of course, we would want to make sure that anyone who is interested and from the town has an interest in serving and has the opportunity to write to us. I would certainly like to read and hear from any of those who are interested, and I would kindly suggest that our superintendent also get a copy so that if you're okay with that, so that the 2 of us, so you can either get one or the other, but certainly to both of us, so that we have all of the email coming in or letters coming in, so that we can put that on our April 14th. Is that the next?
So we have to appoint this position by April 4th. So we have 30 days to fill the vacant position. It gets harder, Sandy, actually. We have 30 days to fill our vacant position from the day that the town clerk tells us there's a vacancy. That brings us to April 4th, which is a Saturday, so really April 3rd, probably at the latest. But the way the statute is written, and Dina, if your opinion has changed on this, please interrupt me. But the way the statute is written, it says that a board seat filled by appointment shall be filled by a vote by the community at the next regular or special meeting, i.e. election. And the way the Secretary of State has advised Director Gordon is that when we have our special vote on the 14th for our budget, we also need to elect a person for the position that we're going to fill by appointment, which means somebody is going to serve by appointment for 10 days, and then we're going to have an election.
Does that mean that that person would have to go out and get the signatures?
If they want it to be on the ballot, yes. And if nobody does that at the April 14th, then we have to reappoint. And we'll have 30 days from the 15th probably to reappoint.
Renee?
We can't add, so that statute requires the petitions to get actually on the ballot. Requires 6 Mondays prior to the election. We are not gonna have.
Sure.
So essentially what's gonna end up on our ballot, which it looks like we're gonna be voting on the 14th, is gonna be a write-in. So
Yes.
people would have to run write-in campaigns.
And is that legit? Sorry. We should
Yes.
ask Dean if that's legit from a legal perspective.
Yeah, so Renee and I have gone back and forth on this, and the Secretary of State's office has twice come out in their non-advice advice, which would, Renee, right? Is that how you interpreted it?
Yes. That.
As well. I mean, he did it twice, so it is bizarrely, it's not a perfect analogy, but some of you may have read about Rutland City and what happened when their mayor stepped down before the end of his term. It's not the perfect analogy, but they wound up having to do a write-in for that. And you're going to appoint because you have that issue of having to appoint. You then have the oddity of a budget failing. And so that's not a regularly scheduled event that happens. And so from the Secretary of State's and from us, it would be a write-in because you're not going to have enough time to do the petitions, to do the vote. So that's going to be a little problematic. I anticipate that what more than likely is going to happen, whomever you appoint, because they're going to have demonstrated interest in being on your board and being a participant and being a member and doing this, is also going to be somebody who's going to push to have people do a write-in for them. Hopefully. If not, then you're going to appoint again, and
All
you
over
can
again.
always, you can pick the same person who demonstrated interest prior to that vote, which would be the person that you would be appointing.
And quick question, how many votes do you need to pass as a write-in?
30.
30?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, so get your family to vote, get their family to vote.
So there could be a hot seat for the writing then.
Yeah.
It could be
We
a
might get
really
three.
hot, it could be a hot seat for it.
It
So
could be a hot seat.
you know, it's an oddity, and I think it's because nobody ever contemplated perhaps a school budget failing at the same time, but
It's needing a spot. So in that scenario where we do have the option of interviewing candidates, we would need to do that at this next week's meeting. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
I mean, I don't know that we need to do it on the 24th. We need to do it before the 3rd of April.
Yeah, but you're running into.
We're running all sorts of stuff.
You're running into
Yeah,
Passover.
yep,
That won't be
yep.
here for some of those nights. You're
Yep.
running into Easter and holidays.
Yep.
So,
So next week is in theory. So it's a good thing Jim is on tonight. Perhaps we can get that word out that we will need to have those letters of interest in quickly so that we can add them to that agenda. So should we need to interview, we have that option.
and if not, there's the option of writing in.
April.
Or, and then
I just,
Right,
I don't know if
we
you've
can
been on
do-
the SVSU website in the last like week or so, but I've seen like there's a pop-up on there as well for interest. So it doesn't have a timeline on there right now, but maybe that could get added to that, is that timeline, so we have that.
yeah, thank you. Okay.
hey, Tim, also, can I just interject? If your principals are gonna be sending out a school newsletter,
Yep.
your Bennington-based principals, maybe they want to put that in there too?
And do you have a newsletter as well, or weekly, monthly?
It's just a thought. That's a
I'll start-
non-legal
I'll
thought.
bring some options to the board next week, folks, to give me some direction.
So if I understand our board correct, we will ask our community citizens from Bennington to consider a spot, the open spot on our board, and to write a letter of interest and address it to the Superintendent Payne, and myself. Next week, when we gather again for our special meeting, those people who are interested, we will hopefully have the opportunity to talk with them. And then make a decision at that meeting. That sound, are we all on the same page? Great, that's awesome, okay. So do we need additional action, or is that our action?
It's good to go.
Okay. There were no policies, operations, I think that Renee is pretty much covered. Best use of facilities update, I'm guessing, have you had a meeting?
There hasn't been a recent meeting, no.
So we're good there. Act 73 update.
Hey, just really quickly, had a meeting with both legislators this week and the Vermont School Superintendents Association. I think folks who've been following along know that there is a map and plan on the House side, and there is a map and a plan on the Senate side. From the conversations with both the legislature and the association, they are very opposite camps. Friday, for folks who really track the political news, there was a third option put on there. It's the Taylor Amendment. I went and looked at it. It doesn't have a lot of detail, and it has no map attached to it on purpose. So I can't really tell you what that is. The guidance that I got from Seth Bongartz, who's very active in the conversation, is that there will be lots of conversations and deals and attempts to get it across the finish line this week, because it's crossover week and they're exchanging their homework. So by Friday, I would not be surprised if you pull open your paper or you're checking them online that there might be some updates, but right now they have a lot of work left to do.
Gonna go right into your Britain's report.
All right, my only note for the board is I want to give an update on the pledge. Since the time we last met. So, first of all, I want to thank both the board and citizens, specifically the folks who brought the petition before the board, had the opportunity to learn the history of the board's decision-making around the pledge, got to read the the petition as offered by the citizens group. It was striking to me how very similar they are, very similar, as Mary and I reviewed those. But I want to thank folks who participated in the conversation. I want to thank specifically a conversation that we had on February 9th. Mary Morrissey, I want to thank Clark Adams and Norm LeBlanc, along with about 20 other folks, joined me in the front conference room. Very respectful, very productive conversation, talking about their concerns and their position on the pledge. Out of that meeting, I provided directions to principals. So, and this directive went out on February 10th. To a question from public comment, it provides for a daily morning announcement routine to start 5 minutes before instructional time, which is 8:25 in most buildings, not in Woodford, 7:30. It identifies an individual responsible for leading the school in the reciting of the pledge. We even gave principals some suggestions around what that would sound like. My expectations of building principals was to develop a daily morning announcement. Many buildings already have this, but it needed to include a daily opportunity to say the Pledge of Allegiance. They were to share this with their staff and school community before the start of February break, which was Friday, February 20th, and to initiate this procedure with staff and students returning to school on March the 2nd. That is a Monday. I also asked them all to provide me with a copy of what their morning routine looks like, and I have received a copy of that from each principal who serves under the ESD. I checked in with them today. How's it going? Is everybody doing this? I got a thumbs up from all the principals. So just wanted to provide the board with that update at this point.
I greatly appreciate that. I did also look at the wording from way back in the day, and when we did sit down as a board, it was, the reason we swapped the wording was to align with the student handbook. And I don't know what each school timeline is, and I do hope that it is aligning with their start day. Because it was, that's back in the time we're looking at it, we needed to change the words of before instructional time to before classes begin in order to meet those needs. If that is the case, and it is something that is now being said, I do hope that you will keep an eye on this for this board, and that our staff and teachers reach out to you should this stop happening, or to stop continuing the way you're intending it to be, so that we know that it will be said and that it is going to be said going forward.
So is this still allowing your students and other Shasbury school students? If it's being said at 8:25 and your children aren't getting into the classroom at 8:35 or 8:30, is that still giving you time?
There's
Within
about a
the
quarter of my
time
class,
frame?
we're not there yet.
So I think part of it is that when you look at our rights as a district, we have the right to get the kids to school on the bus. So I mean, for me, when that bus arrives, 8:25, all the buses should be there at least 5 minutes before. You know, it's a parent's choice if they don't get their kids after 8:25. But
8:25 is the time, that's the tardy.
8:30 is the target, Chef's 8:30 is target. So,
8:25 is when the announcement started.
yeah, when the announcement starts, so that's before of the start of the school day for students. Me as a parent, if I'm dropping my kid at 8:29, I am late, it's my responsibility as a parent. My child has that choice to take a bus from Shasbury and get to school on time. As a parent, if I choose not to get them there on time, it's my responsibility.
Thank
If
you.
you're a walker.
That's not, no, these children are at school.
But.
At school,
if
but they go to a specials class, so they're not missing the
That's
class.
different.
That's not what.
Oh, and I forgot to thank one group, and I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't. So Shasbury is unique in that it may have the longest bus run in the district. The Hollow, you actually have to go to New York before you come back in.
Good.
So that driver is responsible for doing a early run out, collect high school, middle school, haul back into town, haul back out again and get littles to come back in. And so I really want to say thank you to Mike Gardner and Holly Anderson and her crew, because I went back and said, these kids are arriving 3 minutes before the bell, which is 8:30 for instruction time. So they're not getting breakfast, they're not getting the, and they moved it as much as they could. There are 3 buses, I think, that serve Shasberry. So I think it's 10 to 15 minutes prior to 8:30 is the best they can do. I made lots of suggestions. They were politely all put aside, and I appreciate that. But they did their very best to control, as Jeff has said. And I was honest with the group that I'm in. Look, the only thing I have input on is the bus. Families arriving in cars, I can't control that. So I can tell you when the buses arrive, and I can say at 8:25 every day in every school, except Woodford, 8:25, the announcements will come on. Do the announcements sound different in different places? Yes, it's a different reading. It's a different, we get to the menu first. But then there's also room in every one of those schools for an invitation to say the pledge. So I believe that meets both the petition and the board's directive. But the bus is a unique Shasberry challenge, and we did I promise you, I did the very best I
These
could.
kids aren't coming late on. Our bus has actually been really, really good. I live closer to school in Cambridge, New York than some of my kids.
Yeah.
Who out in Holland live.
Long.
Really, that's true. Like, and these buses have been getting the kids on time. I don't have any late buses all year. In mud season now, might change, but they've been very
I
good.
think that's what we have to look at is, there is parents' right, and then there's this education. We have the right to the kids to school on the bus. We can control the bus. We can't control parents, kids who walk. We can't control the parent who's driving. We all know, they look at Shasberry parents drive to school. The school doors open at 8 o'clock. I can drop off a kid at Shasberry School at 8 o'clock by driving to school. My walker can show up at 8 o'clock, and that's supposed to be a property before that. If you drive to Shasberry School, or any school, there are kids waiting outside.
That wasn't my question.
At 7:45.
That wasn't my question. My question was, if they're in the classroom, is this still giving them time? If their children are going to specials, are they still allowed to come back to the classroom and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
So the specials don't begin until classes begin, which is 8:30, and the morning announcements are beginning.
And you get back to your classroom at 8:45, correct?
So,
But the announcements are going at
so
8:25.
the announcements are starting at 8:25, but there's 3 kids in particular in my class who are not there by 8:25, but they're there by 8:30. They're not late for school, but they're not 5 minutes early for school. Those are the ones, no, they're not busers. Cause I want to tell you, I have tons of kids in my class who are school choice kids. They have to get, them. They can't, they're not allowed to take the bus. So these are the kids who are missing it because of that 5 minute window. Because they're not late, but they're not there by 8:25 first classroom for the announcement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
There is some responsibility for parents. If you're driving your kid, get them in time. Or if they're walking, shoot them out the door 5 minutes early. Because the building is open at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Is that helpful?
That was very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you all for that. It honestly has 20 minutes for me to speak, and I promise you I will speak for 20 minutes for this chair's report. Other than, I just want to thank all of you for your support, and although I'm new at this position, I do hope that I serve not only you, but the community as well as I possibly can. And to please keep in mind that the weekend after graduation, I'm hoping to tentatively put a board retreat there so that we can discuss our goals for the next year, academic school year coming up. So that is, I believe, graduation's on the 5th of June, so it's the week after. 12, 14-ish, somewhere after that. If you could tentatively, Corinne, I don't see you writing anything. Put it down so that we can all be together to discuss what our goals are.
Can we push that later?
How much later?
Just because that's the last weekend, I have, the kid will be here, and then she goes to school for
Oh,
whatever the last day of school, and then we ship off to Germany. Then we do the same there to child exchange students, so we'll probably be busy that weekend,
okay.
even with graduation parties, so.
They'll go all summer, won't they? So what do you tentatively sharing as a date then.
Well, that'd just be a busy weekend,
Okay, so,
so. I think
Give
I
us some
can
dates.
for that.
so,
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
they-
are the dates? What are
Oh.
the dates you're looking at that are,
Well, I'm saying that's a bad weekend. It needs to be a bad weekend. Otherwise, I'm.
yeah, the 12th and through the 14th, but what's good for you?
I think.
the weekend after is the 19th and 20th?
19th and 20th would be fine. That's Father's Day weekend though.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Well,
It has to be done on the weekend?
no,
Oh,
absolutely not.
But yeah, until up to the 17th, I am straight out with kids, and then I am straight out with my wife finishing her school year, so. I would not see.
You do have a special meeting next week, so everybody can
Yes.
come and check calendars.
Yes, please
And
do.
significant others and come back and put some dates on the calendar.
that's why y'all need to carry a Bible with you.
Yeah, Cindy wants a survey monkey. So I'm going to share that as my last piece for this chair's report. There is an FYI, budget status report. I don't know if the treasurer's report for January is posted. It is. I see a nod from Chris. We will not be meeting the executive session this evening. And I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Prince out so the two.
Good, thank you.
And I'll email them to you as well, but that.
Thanks,
yep,
Chris.
Be able to shred these things. Or maybe, well,
You guys do.
these are copies in anticipation of, we will, so don't shred them.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you don't mind.
No.
Right.
Okay.
I'll go tomorrow. You go to the Saturday meeting?
Yeah.
And I'll call you guys, maybe, do you work in Bennington? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna, what am I doing?
You let me know, whatever you need.
Well, I'm gonna,
Although I ain't.
I got physical therapy in the water, I'm trying to get out of it.
Why don't you do it with Jeff and then he can answer all the questions for you?
Better if anybody says you're not gonna do
Say something wrong, you put your shoulders Just so.
Yeah, I get the homebound.
So, I will pick the bags up and. Before I go, it's because it's not, I'm so busy and. So I'll pick them up before I go to physical therapy. Where do you work?
Actually, I'm good just to give the money.
I didn't know.
Honestly, I meant to do the mother's skiing thing this year and I was not able to.
Don't you work on this and also help with this?
Yeah, chauffeur. They got where's it go? Different.
Yeah, you're 1%, okay.
Next week.
Yeah.
I have a choice of 4 and I'm busy. Do I breathe wild?
Because of.
See everybody.
Night.
I gotta get home.
Good night, everybody.
Tomorrow for MAU.
That's right, yeah.
Recording stopped.
Right, so enjoy the walk home in the sunshine, at least the light in the sky.